think all the actions that are taken today will be done as communications from the chair because we don't expect to achieve a quorum today, although I am hopeful that Councilmember LeBond is able to join us in a few minutes. We'll begin with item number 4.
Item number 4 is a Englander-Koretz motion instructing DOT to temporarily remove the bike lane on the east side of Mason Avenue from Cessnon Boulevard to Corbin Avenue for a period not to exceed 6 months.
And if we could have a report from staff on that.
Hello, Brian Gallagher, Senior Transportation Engineer from the Department of Transportation. The reason why we're bringing this item to your attention is that we had a brand new school open in Porter Ranch. It's a school that has grades K through 8, and they have approximately 150 kindergarten students. There are bike lanes all around the school on Mason and on Cessnon, and there's no curbside parking next to the school. We had problems when the school opened where no street parking was provided for them, and the parents were parking in the bicycle lanes and they were getting tickets. And we were concerned about not only the fact that they didn't have anywhere to park and that they were getting all these tickets, but that the speeds of traffic were very high on those two streets, and we didn't want to have a situation where parents were walking their kids across the street in the middle of the block to get them to school. We met with the council office, the school district, the people from the school, and the community, and we came up with a plan to provide an interim solution where we would temporarily take the bike lane out of commission for a period of 6 months maximum. We would provide parking on Mason for the parents of the school during that time period, and the parking would only be during school hours. When school is not in session, there would be no parking signs posted, so that on the weekends and after school, that area where the bike lane was would still be able to function as a de facto bike lane because cars would not be allowed to park there. In the long term, we're working with Porter Ranch Development and the school district to have them come up with a new plan that would provide both a bike lane on Mason as well as parking, and it would keep the 2 traffic lanes. We really want to keep the bike lane on that street in the long term. It's part of the 5-year bicycle master plan, and the only reason why we are asking to have it taken out now is for the safety of the school children and their parents. We looked at other alternatives about restriping the roadway, but we could not safely provide a different striping plan.
Now, this is on a 65-mile-an-hour highway?
Right now, there's no speed limit posted on the highway, so the de facto is 65 miles an hour. However, we've recently posted 25 miles an hour when children are present signs out there. So during school hours, when children are present, the speed limit is only 25 miles an hour.
Is it common or does it exist anywhere in the state of California where there is a school on a 65-mile-an-hour highway?
It's not posted as 65 miles an hour. It could be anywhere where you don't have speed limit signs posted, and it's not in a residential or a business area, or where it doesn't have another prima facie speed that applies to it.
It seems unusual that a highway got approved for a school. Are there bike lanes on 65-mile-an-hour highways anywhere else other than this that we know of?
I don't know. Again, it's not posted as 65 miles an hour. It's just a brand new road that was recently built.
But it is a highway.
It's designated as a major highway, yes.
So I appreciate CD12 and their work in resolving it, and we'll hear from them and individuals in the community that were involved. I just wonder how this could have happened. I have to assume that there was a lack somehow of communication between the city and the developer and the school and whoever designed the bike lane, because probably the bike lane didn't make sense on a highway. At least it's somewhat questionable. A school doesn't make so much sense on a highway, and a school with a bike lane with no parking for the school or the bike lane seems astonishing. How did we get here, and how do we make sure that something like this doesn't happen again in the future?
That's something we'll have to work on in the future. I guess an analogy would be that there was a lot of chefs in the kitchen when everything was being prepared, and now the dinner is over, and I'm the person here to clean up the mess. And
I'm not blaming you, but I think somehow we need to establish some level of coordination so this kind of thing doesn't happen again. It really should be institutionalized somehow.
Well, this is the exception because you haven't heard a lot of these other problems in previous meetings, but we really want to get this problem taken care of now and make it safe. And then after we get this problem fixed, we will be working with the developer and the school district to try to make sure that these types of problems don't happen again in the future. But the bike lane was on the approved master bicycle plan.
Yeah, I think it is pretty astonishing because clearly one hand isn't coordinating with the other, because all these things might make sense separately by themselves, but none of them make sense together. I'm going to ask that we have our speakers from the public, and then we'll get back to where we go from here on it. Let's begin with John Lee from Council District 12, be followed by Maria Ventura from Tamar Gallison's office at the school board.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Koretz. John Lee from Council District 12. We have a unique situation here. When you hear that the four-lane highways, all these four-lane highways abut up against all these gated communities. There's normally no parking allowed along these streets, and the streets are normally posted at 50 miles per hour. This is a unique situation where these two new streets were built in accordance with, along with the school site. And so we found a couple of problems. A, the enrollment of the school was much larger than we anticipated, and there was some poor planning on all of our parts. So right now, we legally have to have 150 kindergarten students who have to be walked to class every day, and we have a situation where there is no parking on this. We're working, our office, along with LAUSD, along with Department of Transportation, have been working very closely together. I personally have been meeting with the principal since the first day of school when I drove up and I saw that there was this problem. I saw 300 parents parking illegally because they had no other choice. And in the weeks following, they've been receiving tickets, and we just need to figure out a way to correct this problem. So we're asking for the 6 months to remove the bike lanes, to allow us to park, so we can work with the developer in shaving off some of the medians that are now there, so we can move the lanes over, create a safe place, because obviously, number one, in our book and LAUSD, we're just trying to make sure that all the children that need to be walked to the class are doing so safely.
So if we remove the bike lane, will that solve all the problems, or will parents still be getting tickets for parking in front of the school?
The thing is that right now what we're asking for is to temporarily remove the bike lanes so that we can have the parents park there. We will go ahead and grind up and remove the bike lane for 6 months. And then once we go forward with the plan, and once we talk with the developer and figure out how we're going to shave off those medians, then we'll be able to move over those lanes. The bike lane will be placed back. We'll have a parking lane, and it'll be a permanent solution. But right now, we're just asking for a temporary solution to allow the kids to be able to, for the parents to be able to park there for a short-term period in the morning, short-term period in the afternoon, and then 2-hour parking midday so that our parent volunteers can stay in the classes and help out. We have an incredible school where we have an incredible parent participation. I foresee this is going to be one of the top LAUSD elementary schools in the system, and we're very fortunate to have the school. But unfortunately, we are faced with this problem, and it's really unfair to the parents right now because they are receiving tickets.
Is there anything that could be done that would be would seem on its face easier, like parking on the sides of the school rather than in front on the highway.
No, the sides of the schools, they're both designated highways. So we're asking for, right now, today, we're asking for Mason. The LAUSD is currently doing a small study to see what are going to be the best long-term solutions. They're working with DOT and our office, and we're all working together to find out what the best long-term solution is. But right now, we need to just provide some avenue, even if the parents have to park hundreds of yards away, down the street. It's safer, and also, obviously, take some out of the possibility of getting these tickets.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. And thank you for your good work on this. Maria Ventura, followed by Hillary McGregor.
Good afternoon, council member. Principal Mary Melvin, I'm here to read a statement that she provided. Unfortunately, she was not able to attend. She was sent to a mandatory meeting, principal meeting. And her statement really just states to the situation at the school. And please indulge me, I'm going to be reading a statement from her.
Sure.
On the average day, we have had 65 staff members who use our lot. The lot has only 103 spaces, of those 5 are handicapped. We currently have 12 student teachers and 30 regular volunteers. Many of these are leaders of the PTA Booster Club organization. In fact, each classroom has a schedule for their individual volunteers as well. This doesn't include the 8 volunteers who run the drop-off daily. We have 2 school buses that take up a quarter of the drop-off to bring our student special needs. Many of our students who with special needs need to be walked into the campus. We also have 142 kindergarten students. And she goes on to discuss in her points, they're a community school, they must be available for community meetings that also require space. And she goes on to talk a little bit more about the kindergarten students, that they have to be walked to the class, and that takes time as well. So in a nutshell, she is supportive of this motion as it will move forward to resolve the parking situation. And I wanted to just add one more comment, specifically some of the things were discussed earlier. Our office has asked the school police to monitor the parking situation, specifically during the drop-off time from 2 to 2:30. They have been instructed not to ticket parents, but to help kind of shuttle that process a little bit quicker. So they're going to be involved as well.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hillary McGregor. He's followed by Jen Hostel.
Hello, my name is Hillary McGregor. I'm also from Tamar Gallitzon's office. I'm her chief of staff. I'll make this very brief. I'm here to support this motion. I want to thank Mitch Englander's office for all their work on this and for continuing to push this issue forward to find a solution for this community, which really needs a solution very badly. We promise our office to continue to work with the developer, the council member's office, DOT, and the traffic and safety experts at LAUSD to develop a permanent plan that works. And the only other thing I want to add, having been out to the school a number of times, is, and there's some parents here who will speak, but the closest on-street parking, a parent was telling me today, is 1.6 miles away, just to give you an idea of what people are up against. So thank you very much, and we appreciate your support for this motion.
Thank you. Jen Hostel. My apologies if I mangled your name. To be followed by Glenn Bailey.
My name is Jennifer Hollistow. I am a parent at the Porter Ranch Community School. I am also the co-chair of the Carpool Traffic Safety Committee. We're here in support of the motion. It is for the kids' safety, not just the parents' convenience, but the kids' safety. Right now, like I was saying, I went and drove around looking to see where the closest parking was. We have 0.7 miles away, we have a park with 45 spaces, which are usually full of park goers, but that's 0.7 miles away. Then beyond that, 1.6 miles is the closest way to get legal street parking. The neighborhood is made up of all 55, well, we assume 50-mile-an-hour streets, 5 lanes, and it's all gated communities. So everything, we do not have a single side street, we do not have a single neighborhood in which we can park. Everything is either private and gated, or it is the 50-mile-an-hour main streets that all say no stopping, no parking. So we don't have an option. So we have to park illegally. We have a lot with 105 spaces, 5 of them are handicapped, 67 staff, which leaves us 34 spaces for the parents, the vendors, the volunteers and everything for 700 students. We're only K through 7 this year. We'll be K through 8 next year. Plus, we expect a large influx in our middle school because of children transitioning out of other K through 5 schools. So we're slated to be over 1,000 students, a larger staff, and we will have not even a single parking space. So we are in desperate need of the street parking, and it's a safety issue because parents are paranoid when they come to drop off their kids. So they're racing across 5 lanes of traffic with strollers and children. DOT comes to ticket, the parents start running and doing illegal U-turns in front of these jaywalkers, and the cars are going 50 because no one obviously knows what the speed limit is there. So we're really desperate for not just convenience, but also for safety. And pertaining to the bike lane, it's not a matter of removing it permanently, it's a matter of just moving it to the outside. And I run in this area all the time. The bikers aren't there during pickup and drop off. They frequent it in the morning and the evening, but we certainly don't want to eliminate that because that's part of our community. But thanks, I really appreciate the time and you listening to the parents as well. So thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And Glenn Bailey is our last speaker on this item.
Good afternoon, Council Member Glenn Bailey. I'm on the city's Bicycle Advisory Committee. I've been active in the West Valley because there has not been a CD12 appointee on the Bicycle Advisory Committee who's been active for the past several years, so I've taken it upon myself to speak up on issues when necessary. I'm not going to oppose this, but I do have some concerns. First of all, we do have bicycle lanes in the West Valley where there is parking on the streets and then the bicycle lanes next to the cars, so that's not unprecedented. Where there is a downhill area, though, there is a concern, just a general concern when car doors are opened and bicycle is being doored. So I hope that all these factors are being looked at. I do think that your question is appropriate, that you should ask for a report back so that this never happens again. You have a school district that's been building I don't know how many hundreds of schools, but with the bond measures they have, you have a planning department, you have a Department of Transportation. This is inexcusable that a new facility is being built with inadequate parking, with not considering the traffic flow for drop-off and pickup at the children. Obviously, their safety should be our primary concern, but there's somebody was asleep at the switch here. And I think you should ask for a report back to find out exactly who was asleep at the switch. If I knew who it was, I would tell you, but I don't. Also, I think there should be a requirement for a trust fund to be established, so that whoever's paying for this, for removal and for putting it back, whether it's the school district or the developer or both, that money is guaranteed, and it's not that the city isn't footing the bill out of its limited monies that they have for the bicycle lanes. So I think that should be a requirement of this motion, that money be deposited in such an account. It's not unprecedented, as you know, from other projects, so that money is there waiting in the 6 months down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. And if one of our staff could come back up. That was my remaining question, who pays for this? And is there a way for us to bill the developer and LAUSD to recover the costs?
I'm not aware of any agreement that we have with the school district or the developer right now that would allow us to bill them, but it's something we can look into, but I don't want to let that stop us from implementing the solution. As far as the long-term solution, either the school district or the developer are going to be the ones that handle the design and the reconstruction of the roadway to put in the final striping.
I'm going to move the item, but I'm going to ask that as part of it, that we come back in 60 days with a report on steps that will be taken to make sure we have a process in which such a thing it can't happen again with the kind of lack of coordination we have. And number two, I'm going to ask that we do bill LAUSD and the developer. Whether or not we can guarantee collection yet, I can't tell that from what you've just told me, but we can ask them to cover the costs, and whether we're successful, I can't predict, but I think we absolutely should make that ask. Mr. Lee, do you have something to add to that?
I just wanted to, there's one technical adjustment that needs to be made as far as the streets, right? Is that correct? That instead of our motion states that we are going to be removing the signs and the bike lanes all the way down to Corbin, and it's actually, is it Calabria Way?
To Calabria Way. It's a distance of about 2,000 or 2,500 feet.
The city attorney's office knows of no impediment that the city could not bill for the work being done because we did not design that project. That was a project through the developer and the school district. Therefore, we should be able to bill the school district or the developer for the cost of work done by the city to correct the problem.
That's something I can check with my management on. I'm not the expert on the finance part of the department.
But unless we've been given a legal reason why we can't bill them, that this motion will ask that the city do that we bill them for the cost, that we make the technical correction on the street, and if you could reiterate the street change again, John?
I believe that the motion says to remove the bike lanes to Corbin. We wanted to adjust it so as to accommodate the bike lanes so that we would have a different detour, that it would go to Calabria Way. It's Calabria Way.
And we'll make those two changes, plus we'll request a report back in 60 days on a review of coordination so that this kind of thing can't take place again.
But our item would move forward.
Yes, your item would
Be
move
approved
forward
as amended.
with those amendments. One additional speaker on this item before we move it. John Sherwood, if I'm reading this correctly. If not, you can repeat your name again.
John Starrett, I'm with LAUSD.
Yes.
We're not going to comment on it, but I just want to make a couple points for clarification from the district's perspective. We have, in fact, built 129 schools over the last 10 years. This particular situation is unique. The district, the developer, if there's any financial responsibility, obviously we'll take care of what we need to take care of. One thing I want to stress, though, is this is a municipal street. Requests were made. There's a lot of different people that went into this. LAUSD is doing an internal investigation. I strongly suggest that from an internal perspective, we also look at the LADOT's handling of the requests from the developer and the district regarding this particular project. This school started getting constructed 2 years ago. Most of the people involved knew we were going to get to this point, and a lot of things didn't happen as planned to get us to this. So what I want to stress is obviously the district's going to do what we need to do, but there's a number of different groups or entities that were involved with this. So we do need to get this resolved. We very much appreciate you folks providing some relief. We will work with the developer and the city to make sure that the conceptual striping plans are developed and this thing gets resolved. The one thing that we're going to request from the district is once the conceptual plan gets to the city department that reviews that and approves that there's some expediency into it, that it gets moved through, we get the approvals, we get the comments back, and then working with the developer, we will get this particular issue resolved. So, we are partially responsible, but I do want the record to state that the district is not the entire reason we have the situation. We're trying to resolve it. The safety of our students and our parents are upmost to us, and we do appreciate the support that your office has given us in order to get it resolved.
Thank you. And obviously, that's certainly a fair point that when this moves through, we want this, because of all the safety issues at hand, to move through as quickly as it possibly can.
The DOT will offer to meet with the school district and their consultant that's doing the design before they start the design, so we can kind of let them know in advance what we're looking for, kind of like seeing the answer at the back of the book. So when they do the plan, they know exactly what to design for, so it minimizes the number of iterations back and forth with reviews.
Very good. So this item will move forward as amended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'm going to take public comment. I have two speakers from the public. Carmen Pena to be followed by Ethan Michaels.
Good afternoon. My name is Carmen Peña, social worker, Department Children and Family Services, LA County. I work in service areas part 4, which is LA County, basically downtown area. As emergency worker, I have to be available almost 24/7, even though our payment schedule is 8 to 5 or to 7. However, we have to be available basically 24/7. I am here on behalf of my more than 2,000 social workers. We are in the street almost every day, night, and we are almost equal like a paramedic, like a fire department, that we have to be ready when we receive a report to ensure minor safety, to be ready to go immediately. And when, especially in my experience, I entered to the home and I started to interview the family. I found they are 7, 8 children, plus parents, plus relatives, and I have my car parking, and I am so concerned to thinking in the parking more the ensure minor safety, and that for me is very put at risk my investigation and the children's situation. And that does not happen only not to me, to almost the co-workers, especially the co-workers who work at night. And now I wanted to be here to advocate on behalf of my all co-workers. Again, more than 2,000 social workers we are in the street only for the LA County, different than different other departments. And I wanted to take in consideration that we are children's safety first, and that we are working 7 to 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Ethan Michaels?
My name's Ethan Michaels. I'm a emergency response social worker, basically here to talk about receiving tickets past 7 o'clock in the evening. Like Carmen said, she is a colleague of mine. I work normally 9 to 8, but I'm out till 2 in the morning, and we have another group of people that works from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m., and our primary concern is children's safety. But if I'm concerned about my car getting towed or a ticket occurring while I'm in a home to protect these children, that is a concern that I have, that I'm not here to get a pass to park. I'm here to do my job, and if I can't do my job to protect these children, as we heard in the last situation about children's safety, I'm doing a disservice to these families as I am to the county and to the city. So I understand also that my fellow union traffic officers have our support, but they are being pressured by their employer that they must ticket us. I personally have been ticketed on numerous occasions for parking in a spot where I would put out my placard, but because they're being told they need to ticket us, they ticket us. My job is not a 8 to 5 job. It's not 40 hours a week. Sometimes it's 60 or 80, and I cannot do my job successfully if I'm feeling pressured that I need to get out to my car to put quarters in the meter or make sure that my car is not being towed. Like last night, I put my car in a Burger King parking lot because there was no place to park. And I was concerned I was going to have my car towed. But again, my job should not be to be concerned about my car. My job is to protect children from abuse, neglect, domestic violence, alcoholism, you name it. So I hope that what we want is a policy that would stipulate that my job is just as important as a police officer's or a fireman's, because we're here to protect the children. That's all. Thanks.
Just if I could get some clarity as to what you're talking about, because probably half the people here have no idea. I think I know, though. I just want to clarify it.
Sure.
It used to be that when you got a city placard, it held basically around the clock. Recently, there was a change, and after a certain hour, I think it's 6 or 7 o'clock. It's not just you. It's a particularly a problem for council offices, because our staff work with homeowners associations and neighborhood councils, and we park in neighborhoods and we get tickets. And frankly, I don't know if there are any other council members that use their own car, but I have a pass just like you, and when I go to neighborhood meetings in the evening, I get tickets. It's a ridiculous situation. So personally, I would like to see it changed. I think it was a ridiculous change to begin with. It's frustrating enough for me that I'm ready to cost the city the money it would take to have a city car, because I'm so tired of getting tickets and then having to try and get them corrected when I'm on city business.
Right.
So I understand your problem. I think it applies to a lot of different areas, and I'm happy to take up that issue. But hopefully DOT hears this. I don't know why the change was made in the first place, but hopefully sometime in the next coming months we can get that corrected.
Well, we would hope that it wouldn't take months, because this is something that's affecting us now. So we'd like this
I agree, it's
policy.
affecting everybody now, and I will try to take it on as quickly as I can. You should know, though, I'm one council member, so I can't just say it's going to happen, because I don't make the decisions for the whole council, but I will push this issue.
Okay.
And I thank you for bringing it to our attention. Item number 1.
Item number 1 is the city attorney report and ordinance amending the Los Angeles Municipal Code to extend bicycle parking requirements to cover certain multifamily residential developments.
And if we could have a staff report on this item?
Hi, good afternoon. Tom Rothman from the Planning Department. I'm joined with
David Summers, also Department of City Planning.
This is the bicycle parking ordinance in front of you today, and this has already been adopted and approved by the City Planning Commission last year and has been to Plum. It was reviewed by the City Attorney's Office, and now it's on its last round of approvals from committees before it goes to the full City Council to be adopted. And this is very simply an implementation ordinance that begins to implement the bicycle plan that's part of the city's general plan that was adopted by City Council last year. And it supports 10 different implementation policies of that plan. Councilman Labange, I just began, I'm just saying this is an implementation ordinance for the bicycle plan. So
And I should stop for the record and note that I've been joined by my colleague, Councilmember Tom Labange.
From the district, and I want to thank Zaki Mustafa, because there was no traffic on the way back from North Hollywood. Thank you.
Okay, so great. So this is really this is making some amendments to the existing zoning code. So currently, our zoning code has very limited abilities to regulate parking spaces for bicycles. So in order to implement the bike plan, we reviewed the current zoning code, and currently, bike parking is only required for commercial and industrial buildings that are larger than 10,000 square feet. So we're changing that. We're requiring it for all commercial and industrial buildings. Currently, only one bicycle parking space is required per 50 automobile spaces. No bike parking is required for any residential uses at all today. And there's little guidance for siting and design standards for these bicycle facilities. What this ordinance does do is it now expands where bicycle parking is required to those smaller buildings and to multifamily buildings. It also increases bicycle parking for institutions and industrial uses, those buildings also under 10,000 square feet. It also expands it to city-owned buildings and to parks. And there's...
What's it cost?
What does what cost?
This requirement.
What does the requirement cost? Well, I can get that information for you.
That's a good,
That's a good question.
yeah, thank you.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. We do have bicycle racks. We also have require storage facilities. So I guess what in particular did you?
Well, I think we have a big need for housing, so we're trying to push housing. So how much is this going to go to, let's say,
a developer of a 50 unit?
35 unit building on Westmoreland between 4th and 5th,
That is a good question.
west side of the street?
Let me get back to you on the specifics of that one when I talk.
Yeah, I
to
think it's
somebody
just,
at the
we should
DOT.
know that there. I think it's important.
No,
But
that's good. That's a
if
very
you do it within the new plan, is it retroactive at all?
No.
Yeah, okay.
No. Only for new development and for major remodels,
Right.
like most of our zoning ordinances.
Right.
So let me just finish up. So this does, and it also sets design standards, clear rules for how to site bicycle parking spaces so they're not hidden, so that you could find them easily in parking structures. And it also, and it makes a distinction between short and long-term parking for bicycles. So that's it in a nutshell. David has also a few items to add, and then we're ready for questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up from the ordinance that you received out of the city attorney's office. I just was reviewing it, and I think that I just caught two minor text omissions, or one was actually a typo and one was an omission. And you got that you should have got that as a handout with the presentation, and it's just, one is that there is a replacement ratio that was established as far as the bike parking spaces that number of bike parking spaces that could be credited for an auto car space was established in the ordinance. It currently says just non-residential can be replaced 4 to 1, and that was intended to be for both residential and non-residential. What is the distinction between the two is that there's a different cap overall of how much parking can be reduced between, there's a difference from non-residential, and residential establishes a lower cap. And that was, I think it was a result of the public outreach that was conducted. So this just clarifies that the replacement ratio is for both residential and non-residential buildings. In addition, there was just a code reference that was an error. It is it's supposed to reference for, I think, the standards, the standards that match the 1,500 feet fixed rail transit station that's referenced in 1224 of the municipal code, and not 1221, which is a general provision. So that was corrected. And that's the only difference that was made between what you received through the city attorney's office and then what we would be proposing to be incorporated in final adoption.
Okay, yeah, I have a few questions. I'm sure Mr. Labange does too. Have you met extensively with the neighborhood councils and with the building industry on this, and what kind of feedback did you get?
Certainly, we held a staff hearing on this initially, and we notified everybody through our early notification system who is a stakeholder. We met with the neighborhood councils at our monthly plan check meeting several times. We've also met with the Builders Association of America, VICA, CCA, the Bicycle Advisory Committee, which includes representatives from each council district. We circulated the staff report and the draft staff report to all neighborhood councils as part of our early notification system. There were some concerns from the building industry that centered around large developments. They were concerned that we might be requiring too much parking for large commercial buildings. So we took that into consideration, and we did modify the ordinance prior to it being heard by the commission to sort of taper it down once it hits a certain threshold. So there won't be onerous amounts of parking required for large buildings. And the neighborhood councils were concerned about bicycle racks proliferating on sidewalks, and we did allow a certain amount of flexibility for bike racks to be shared by different store owners, so every store was not required to put 2 bicycle spaces in front of their store, and they seemed very satisfied with that. And our public hearing at the commission, there was very, very little opposition.
Any problems with right-of-way issues, making sure that there's enough space to be handicapped accessible, et cetera, et cetera?
I don't believe that came up to handicap accessible for the bicycles or
Yeah, just making sure there's enough space that the racks don't don't
Oh,
block.
they don't clutter up the actual street of the actual sidewalk. Well, we did run it past the Department of Transportation and the Bureau of Engineering, and it signed off by both departments and the Bureau of Street Services to make sure there's not a proliferation of clutter or any type of delays.
And Building and Safety also looked at this, I presume?
Yes, they were very closely involved in drafting the ordinance. They were part of it. They were going to be the ones inspecting it and making the requirements for the bicycle spaces. So they're going to be, they actually implement and enforce the city's zoning code.
And we'll make sure presumably that plan checkers are properly trained in this
Definitely.
change.
The planning department is currently drafting, I think David we're drafting a handy guidebook for all stakeholders, for building and safety plan checkers, for the planning department, and also for all, anybody. It's going to be available online and hard copies. It lays out very detailed guidelines of how this is going to be implemented. And again, this is implementing what the city council adopted last year as part of the bike plan.
And how are we going to, other than that, how are we going to communicate this to builders and developers?
Well, it's on our website. It's all, and it will be as part of the zoning code. Once it gets adopted, they'll be informed of all updates if they
Apply for a permit.
apply for a permit, but if they subscribe to updates from the city department websites. And many of our usual customers get updates about our zoning code on a regular basis.
Okay, and how did we arrive at the requirements for the number of spaces? Did we look at other cities? Did we look at our current use and projected use?
We pretty much averaged the cities we looked at. We reviewed 10 cities, I believe. Let me see which cities.
Boulder, Chicago, Columbus, Davis, Milwaukee, New York, Portland, San Diego, San Francisco, and Santa Monica.
Right.
Are the ones that were referenced.
And we averaged, basically, so we're right in line with the requirements of other major cities in the United States.
Very good. Mr. LeBon?
Did you get to go to any of those cities? Because I think it's important for you to physically see it.
I have seen it in Portland and New York, and I've been to about half of those cities.
Yeah, so you've seen how the bike actually looked at it there. And how many pages is that document
Which one?
that you held up there?
Oh, this one, the bikeable design?
yeah.
Design, this right now is just under 30 pages.
Yeah, why don't you make it 5, okay?
Yeah, well-
Because I think if you could simplify it, people will understand it more and they'll catch it, and make a Cliff Notes version and then get the deep version. Because I think this is I see the letter from the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council. I don't know if the representative from the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council is here, or they sent a letter, and they made a very good point. In denser areas that have older buildings, there's very little to create because everything's built out, yet more people are using cycling as a first method of transportation. So looking at some of this here, in this letter right here. Barbara Ringette? But anyway, do you have a copy of this?
I
I want to give it to you, and if you could call her or respond somehow, or call our office so we could give her a response that was sent to the
What
committee.
office is it from?
It's Silver Lake Neighborhood Council. So there is a copy, that's good.
Awesome.
So I think this is just the ongoing evolution to make sense. When you have a plan before you have to build, and it works into the plan, I think that's really important. I think what Paul mentioned as far as accessibility for handicap, because that is becoming a real challenge for the more street furniture we put in the street, whether it's the street or the sidewalk, but that you can resolve it. And as we go forward, we work it out. Good.
Okay, we've got a few speakers from the public, beginning with Alec Bartrosov, to be followed by Eric Bruins and Glenn Bailey.
Hello, my name is Alec Bartrosov. I'm with the LA County Bicycle Coalition. I'm here to strongly support the ordinance. I think it complements the bicycle master plan very well. We're finding hundreds of miles of bicycle lanes are being implemented, and so people have a way to get around, and now we need adequate parking for these cyclists as well. I think the timing for this ordinance is right. Today we're facing with gasoline prices today in LA County at $4.66 a gallon. And I think people are looking for alternatives, and I think this would only complement that kind of lifestyle. The way that I interpret the ordinance, I feel that this would reduce the cost for development. We all know that parking for cars costs thousands and thousands of dollars for each spot. So I think giving developers some flexibility would allow for cheaper parking costs for developers, which would then be passed on to consumers. I think the ordinance is comprehensive and progressive. It meets the needs of both short-term and long-term parking, which is very important. And I think it provides innovative bike parking solutions. And so for those reasons, I hope that you support this ordinance. Thanks.
And I think, as you mentioned, the oil companies and the bicyclists in the city must have conspired to give us the highest oil prices ever as we discussed this item.
Very timely.
Yes, thank you. Eric?
Yes, I'm Eric Burns, the Planning and Policy Director, also with the LA County Bicycle Coalition. And I want to repeat everything that, instead of repeating everything that Alex said, one of the things, I had a conversation with an architect friend of mine last night, and he's always trying to get these LEED certified buildings, right, which is, you have the gold, the silver, and the platinum, and all those kinds of things. And one of the things they're struggling to do in the city of LA is get innovation credits because they're so inflexible in the parking requirements that they aren't able to meet some of the objectives. And so because this ordinance increases the flexibility there, it actually makes it easier for our architects to get our city more LEED certified buildings. So I thought that was it's an interesting way that you have all of these different planning and policies that overlap and things are getting dropped, and this ordinance really does a lot of things that are really great for our city. Thank you.
Now how does it do that? Does it impact the number of car trips? Are you allowed to have fewer parking spaces or car trips or anything like that to offset more bicycle trips planned?
Yes, so what this ordinance does is it includes a provision that requires a minimum amount of bike parking, which is one of the LEED criteria. But in addition to that, it gives developers flexibility and if they think that they're locating in, for example, a transit-oriented area, they can actually reduce a little bit of the car parking and provide a much greater bike parking, which allows more people to come to whatever you're building, but it also allows a little bit more flexibility so they're able to pursue some of these more advanced credits.
Very good. Thank you. Glenn Bailey.
Good afternoon, committee members. Glenn Bailey. I am the Vice Chair of the City of Los Angeles Bicycle Advisory Committee, and this time I am here on official capacity as the Bicycle Advisory Committee has endorsed this ordinance when it was before council previously, before it was sent to the city attorney, and so I wanted to report that, and I believe that was a unanimous vote of support. I just wanted to make a few comments. First of all, in terms of what we have now versus what's in here, this is light years ahead. We've basically had probably 40 years we made no progress. And so we have done a lot in the infrastructure in the city, and we're going to continue to do so, but we need, once people travel our streets and when they get to their destination, they need to have a place to park. And they need to have a place that's safe. And they need to have it whether they're going in to shop for an hour or whether they're working there for 8-9 hours a day. And this ordinance addresses all of those issues. In reality, we have lost because we can't go back and retrofit, because they're grandfathered in these past developments. But a lot of the big box or small box type developments, they're national chains, they just plop in their designed nationwide design. And wearing my hat as a neighborhood council board member, every time we have a development come before us, I have to ask, are you provide bicycle parking? Every single time. And there's other people on neighborhood councils that have to ask the same question. So this helps us make sure that they come in with their designs to the neighborhood councils, already thought out, and we don't have to figure out where to put them in. So that's a real plus. Also, I just wanted to indicate that this is good, and we need to pass it as soon as possible to take care of the developments in the pipeline or soon to be in the pipeline. But beyond that, we really need to look at the existing city facilities in particular. I'm not talking about private, city, because there's a lot of them that have inadequate parking, and you have the power, the authority to make sure that we make sure that all the city departments, whether it's for employees or stakeholder visitors, the public, has a place to park, and I would be happy to work with your offices in that regard. But that's another project for another day, but I think that I want to keep that it's not done forever, that this is an ongoing effort, because there's some needs of addressing our existing facilities as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Glenn, and obviously we'll continue to work together to make progress on this issue. Rai Berge, apologies if I mangled that name, and Eric Weinstein is the last speaker on this.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Rai Berg. I'm with the Safe Routes to School National Partnership. I just came here to support the ordinance today. At my organization, we'd like to encourage kids to walk and bike to schools, and we're excited to see that there's some provisions for schools in this ordinance. We will have to work with LAUSD in the future because they're outside of the city's jurisdiction on this one. But I think the city's already moving in that direction. I want to congratulate you on the Safe Routes to School plan and the new pedestrian coordinators that you've hired. I think that that will go a long way to addressing the earlier issue that we discussed in this chamber as well. And then finally, I just think that this fits very well with some of our other regional goals and SB 375, our greenhouse gas emissions, and recently the 2012 RTP that was passed at SCAG. So thank you.
Thank you. Eric Weinstein.
Good afternoon, council members Perez and Labange. My name is Eric Weinstein. I'm a member of the cycling public, and I appreciate this committee's support of anything that does a good thing for bicycle parking, because it's quite difficult to get around town and find a place to park. Thank you very much.
I'm going to vote for it because you gave the shortest speech. Good job.
And I'm going to move that we adopt the staff report and the supplemental staff reports as our reports on the subject, adopt the findings included with the staff report, adopt the negative declaration as the CEQA clearance on the subject, and approve the proposed ordinance and recommend its adoption by the City Council without objection.
Second.
Councilmembers, does that include the amendments presented by planning staff this afternoon?
Yes, that was intended to include everything, including the amendments. Thank you.
Can I just make a suggestion? For those of you who may be visiting City Hall, I don't know if you've ever been at the top of City Hall. You ever been at the top of City Hall? It's a beautiful day today. Before you leave, go enjoy it. It's an open deck. It's very pretty. Thanks.
Thank you. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is a CAO report relative to transferring $16.51 million in special parking revenue fund surplus to the city's reserve fund.
Good afternoon. Janice Chang-Yu, Office of the CAO. Before you is a report from our office recommending the surplus declaration of $16.5 million from the 2011-12 fiscal year as a surplus to be transferred to the reserve fund.
I don't know if you have knowledge, but I used to see a report, and it had, this is from parking districts too as well, a combine of all the funds?
It was a few years ago that we, during the surplus declaration, that we swept all those funds.
Right, but there used to be a report that would go like the Wilshire Westwood Parking District, Vermont Alvarado Parking District, Hollywood Vine Parking District. Do you remember that at all?
There's still, DOT does have reports in.
I want to know how much revenue is generated at certain parking districts throughout the city. Have you ever seen that report?
The department can run that.
But have you ever seen that report?
I've seen the report.
Good, okay, so as long as you've seen, Maria, have you seen those? Would you give me those reports, please?
Yes, I will.
Citywide on all the parking districts. Thank you.
And of course, the big difference is it used to be that some of that money would go to the local areas for parking, but at the moment, we're now just sweeping that money, and I think that's part of what this item is doing, is catching up to that.
I move it, I just want to see what, it's okay to sweep it, but you want to see what you're sweeping.
Okay, so that item...
There's also a technical correction that we just gave to the clerk.
Okay, so we will move this item as amended with the technical correction without objection. Thank you. And item number 3.
Item number 3 is a Zine Reyes motion requesting the city attorney prepare and present an ordinance to prohibit the exchange of compensation for taxi cab operators to gain access to passengers at hotels and other venues, and the police department and Department of Transportation to report relative to the ongoing enforcement of prohibiting limousines from operating as taxis.
Hi, Tom Drischler, Taxi Cab Administrator, Department of Transportation. Perhaps the city attorney would like to just present an update as far as the doorman ordinance is concerned. I know that we do have some representatives from the taxi industry, drivers and managers who want to speak in support of the ordinance. But then we also have a little update for you on our bad enforcement efforts.
The ordinance has been drafted. I have submitted a copy to Tom, and it has not been approved as to form and legality. It's still working its way up our chain of command, but we expect that will be finished sometime probably next month.
Now, this has been a pretty dragged out, slow process, right? We started in 2008, I believe.
Right.
So, and I've been aware of this problem even before my time in LA City. It also went on in West Hollywood, where I used to be a council member. So clearly, we want to resolve it, so hopefully this will happen as quickly as possible. Let me ask three members of the public to speak, and then we'll continue with our discussion on it. Martin Manukian? You're fine. Stephen Matoavsky? Okay, both pass. And Sam Jeldy? Please.
Harry.
Good afternoon, City Council member, and my name is Sam Jeldy. I'm the Director of Taxi Industry and supervision of all that and the supervisor we have in the city to monitor all the business and coordinating directly with Tom Driscoll. This issue is almost 3 years issue. You know, you're aware about the situation. And this is a very right time right now because I can getting a lot of complaint, and some of the hotels, the doorman even hostage the customer to give that person to his own and driver. And I am dealing directly with most of general manager from the west side to downtown, all of them, Century Plaza, JW Marriott, all of them going to be very happy if you take decision today to help the taxi industry and to pass forward and help us, everybody. They're not going to oppose you. They're going to be very happy if they hear the city ordinance pass. I really thank you, your help. We really need your help on behalf of taxi industry. Thank you very much.
And I think it makes a cleaner process and certainly levels the playing field. It's a win-win for everybody, really, by regulating this. So appreciate you coming here and support.
Thank you.
Mr. Labange, do you have any
Tom, I had a question
questions?
for you. Pretend, and I don't want to be walking out of any hotel in LA, but I'm walking out of the Waldorf Astoria, but it's in LA. You got it? So that's, so you got that. So I don't want to say I'm walking out of the Bonaventure, but I'm walking out of the hotel. And how's this work that you want to change? You mean, is it between the taxi operator and the doorman? He plays favorites? Or if I'm a guest at the hotel and I tell the doorman, could I have a taxi? And I give him $5 or whatever I give him, $2, what's the deal?
Well, basically what happens in many instances, and it's actually happened to the city attorney and myself when we were returning from a retirement party for John Fisher, because we just tried out.
You couldn't walk back from the new Otani?
No, we just tried out the doorman just to see if he was pulling a scam.
Okay. Yeah, all right, okay.
We were just checking him out.
Was
And-
it the new Otani? Where was it?
And we asked for a taxi, and he said, and first thing they tell you is, oh, you don't want a taxi, I can get you a nice town car for cheaper, which 90% of the time is not true, that's cheaper, but basically it's a hustle because the doorman already has a financial arrangement with the operator of the town car. And the town car may have a state PUC permit or it may not. In any event, in that case, it's not a prearranged trip, which would make it an illegal trip, and the driver would be subject to arrest and the vehicle subject to impound.
So this is going to have a little earthquake with whatever's going out there, because probably this is happening. This is going to be a big
Right.
thing.
But basically, at some hotels, the drivers are running rackets, for lack of a better term.
Do many hotels have their own, shuttle car? What's the difference between that?
Some have some in-house limousines. A few of them are permitted through us. Some have TCP permits. We're fine when a limousine operator operates within the confines of the rules of the Public Utilities Commission.
Right.
If it's prearranged, that's fine. But it's the hustling of non-prearranged, of walk-up passengers that are naturally taxi cab passengers into these vehicles on a non-prearranged basis. That's what this.
So basically, to get around this, in the future, they'll do their concierge, if you want a private vehicle, see somebody, so.
Right, and, and that's fine.
That's fine, okay, good. Another thing I just wanted to mention, because there's so much that is going on to upgrade, and thank the taxi industry. What do you tip? See, what do you tip? I think we should inform the public what they should tip if they do. I just think they should, and am I right or wrong? I think they should. There should be some public education on what to tip is to ensure prompt service or something. But some people don't know how to tip or do know how to tip or whatever it is. So look at that. And also, the last thing I did want to ask, do we give a test to our drivers on what streets, or someone was telling me in London, you got to study for 2 years before you get a taxi license. What kind of test do we give? Like, where's City Hall?
Yes, the drivers have an exam before they're issued a permit, and it's actually an open book with the Thomas Guide, which even though it's kind of obsolete these days because everyone uses GPS, but they have to demonstrate that they know how to get from point A to point B, wherever those points are.
And do we know any of the city history or anything like that? Because that would be a nice effort.
Well, history, I wouldn't say city history, but they do have to know the key rules for operating.
Yeah, I think it's something in the future to work cooperatively with the industry to upgrade as ambassadors, because they are ambassadors. You know who the smartest people in Washington are, Paul?
I'm not who you're thinking. I'm not sure who you're thinking.
Are not the senators, are not the Congress people, but are the taxi drivers. They know more than anything else. I was in a taxi and I was going out to NBC, and we drove by the vice president's house. That taxi driver was so smart. We drove by there. You know what he said to me? No rabbits on that land. That's when Cheney was vice president. He'd shoot everything. Anyways.
Hey, I have...
Mr. Rubalcaba, would you speak to that?
Sure.
Councilman...
I'm in the tourism industry, so I'm...
I didn't fill out a form, but you asked a question. I think you deserve an answer. I'm an attorney and a consultant for Yellow Cab. I represented Yellow Cab for probably 13 years now, and I can tell you that they have their own training program over and above what Tom has alluded to. And that training program is a training of place names and locations within the city of Los Angeles, routes and suggestions, traffic patterns, a number of different things that prepare the drivers that drive for Yellow Cab prior to the time they come and take the exam with the city. So there is efforts being done.
Good job, but I think we could do more.
And they're addressing your concern.
Thank you very much.
And we hope that everyone will meet those standards eventually. Hey, I have one other question. Is it most typically these shady deals with individual doormen? Are there some smaller hotels where it's a standard practice by everyone at the hotel? What do you find as patterns?
I think generally it's individual doormen, but there are some hotels where it's pretty obvious that the management, if they're not in collusion, they're at least knowledgeable of it. Now, one of the things with having this law on the books, because it's modeled after similar laws in San Diego, Miami, is that once it's on the books, someone like me, if I understand there's a problem at a hotel, I can call the hotel manager and say, we think you may have a problem with this doorman, and we have this law on the books, and here's your chance to self-regulate and take care of the problem yourself without us having to do enforcement actions.
Good.
That'd be great. I would ask that we receive and file the motion and ask that the ordinance be agendized for November 14th, and ask the city attorney's office to be prepared by that date.
City attorney is grimacing as if he just saw a
I
doorman.
just wonder if we should continue the item to November 14th, and we can get Mr. Echevarria to, hopefully he'll be able to find the time.
Yes, we'll ask that be continued to November 14th, and I know that'll require a little push, but I know you guys can do it.
Right.
And so without objection, that will be the order, and we are adjourned.
Excellent.